everybody. Deborah King, thanks so much for coming. One of our talk about one of the hottest topics there is, addiction. So, the way this happens is I do a few private sessions for my level fours in my life force energy healing class, and I'll get three people in 1 week who all talk about the same theme, and I inspired them to think that this is a big deal. We should be talking about it in our wider audience. So last month you heard me talk about sexual abuse for the same reason. I had two or three people in 1 week all raise the same topic, and I thought, wow, I haven't thought about that in years, but that occupied a third of my life dealing with it, right? Until I had more compartmentalized it and dealt with it, and then I could help others with it. Same thing with addiction. Same thing. It was just a huge a problem for me as a young adult, and thank God for the 12-step programs. In my case, AA. Thank God for that, or I'd be dead. I'd be dead. So I thought, with that three people just a week or so ago, I thought it's time for us to talk about it again. We really should, because if you aren't personally dealing with it, addiction to some substance or behavior, your family member is, or your partner, or one of your kids, one of your colleagues at work, or if you're dealing with, so many of you I know want to be a private practitioner. I have a school that teaches you how to be a private practitioner. One of your clients will confide in you that they got a real problem with, and they'll name the substance. They'll name the substance. It is really, really a common problem, really. So let me tell my own story, which I haven't thought about in a million years. And then I want to hear yours. I want to hear a bunch of you talk about your story. So I hadn't thought about mine in quite a while. When you're in the throes of addiction, you think about it constantly. When you finally admit to yourself, okay, that you're an addict, which takes a while. It really takes a while. I thought about, what was my story? Because when you first start, that if you're if you carry that addiction gene, like about, I think half the population does, a gene they can now find right in your physiology, uh, that first hit feels like, oh my God, I finally found something that solves all my problems. That first drink, or that first um, hit a pot, or whatever your thing is, it hits hard, and it's just like a key in a lock. It makes you feel, oh my God, I felt so spectacular. All of a sudden, I didn't feel so afraid. I felt confident. I felt attractive. I felt like I could talk. I felt, social. I felt great, just great. And that's true for most people. Is that at the beginning, it starts off great, and what a crutch. Um, it gives you ways to talk, and you tell yourself, I'm in control of this. I'm in control. And it's a while before you admit that you've lost control of the thing. In fact, you have a whole new problem. So you take up the addiction to solve a problem, and the next thing you got a new problem on top of the one you were trying to solve, and it's made the one you were trying to solve a lot worse. So for example, if you had marital problems, I can assure you it will make it worse. If you have problems at work, it'll make it much worse, right? They won't like it when you miss days or show up not quite together. um, so it spirals out of control very quickly. um, so this, what I also have learned from dealing with probably thousands of people on this topic, and of course I hung out at AA for years. I never do anything mildly. I believe, like any addict, I believe that if you're going to do it to excess. And that's almost an addict's rule of thumb, right? If it feels good, do it to excess. And so I did 2 meetings a day, one before I went to work in the morning and one after dinner for 3 years. Swear to God, I did 2 meetings a day. I so did not want to slip. I so did not want to, because I thought I'd seen a few people slip and it looked really, really nasty. Like you had to crawl back up and you had so much shame, and felt like such a failure. And I thought, remember at that time I'd tried to quit smoking. I remember I had a brother-in-law I really didn't like, and it was mutual. And I mistakenly said to him one time, I've been trying to quit smoking. And he goes, "Oh, you're never going to make it. What's this, number 34?" And it was about number 34. It took me forever to quit smoking. But anyway, back to this. I had a much more serious addiction to alcohol and Valium, both of them. I thought they went really well together until I was out one night with a gal who was a physician, an ER physician, who came up to ski with us at Tahoe. And she saw me popping Valium freely while I was drinking. And she goes, that's really not such a good idea. And I said, "It isn't? Seems to work really well." And she goes, "It may put you to sleep forever." And I said, "I didn't know that. I didn't know that." So, what I've noticed is the substance that you're using is often covering something a lot deeper, right? It's usually covering massive insecurity, or, it starts as a strategy. As I said, it starts good. Uh, for people, I'm not a cocaine user, but I've had a lot of people tell me that it starts great, that it solves all your problems. You're not tired anymore and you're not tongue tied. You're just on fire. And then the next thing you know, your whole life is just shredded. So again, it always starts really good. And the other thing, Robin Williams has a great quote. He said, "Addiction is something that waits. It waits for the moment that you think you're fine. It just waits. It's just hiding there, waiting." I was young. The first exposure I had to addiction was I went away to boarding school, and I had an older sister who lived like 30 miles away. I was so anxious to see her, I mean, it's hard to go away to school when you're 14. And so she kept promising to come visit and didn't show a couple times. So I called my mother, and my mother called her. And my mother was a wise old gal who knew all about addiction. I have rampant addiction on both sides of my family. So my mother's father was an alcoholic. And So she knew all about alcoholism. So she knew something was up, and she called my sister and figured out that my sister was addicted, helped her find the fact. She was addicted to pain pills and was afraid to drive to see me for fear she'd have an accident because she was all loopy during the day. And her own husband didn't know, because by the time he came home from work, she had, had um, passed the loopy part. So the next thing I knew, I went to see one of my boarding school roommates in Las Vegas, and was promptly offered a drink. And I was, 15 or 16 years old. And I still remember looking in the mirror at the hotel, going to the ladies' room and looking in the mirror and seeing a different person. I thought, "Don't you look great? You've just had a drink and you just look wonderful. You look so mature. You look so confident." Yeah. But maybe some of you remember your first drink and what it did to you. So, you can hide addiction for a while, not very long, um, not very long. And then I found out about Valium when I was in college. I found out that, it did a pretty good job too of numbing you. And then, as I said, I tried them all in combination, and um, I didn't. I didn't, every night I'd read the newspaper. Remember, guys, when they had newspapers? I'd come home from work as a young lawyer. I was really young, and I'd read the newspaper, and down on the bottom, there's a little tiny square box that said, "Have a problem with alcohol?" And I always quickly turn the page, right? Because I didn't want that to apply to me. But finally, one night, I called I called Eric. I called my husband, and I was in a bar, and I didn't think I should drive home. And he came and got me. And on the way home, he turned to me and he goes, "Do you think you're an alcoholic?" Oh, oh, I was so shocked. You're so shocked, right? And we were separated at the time because I was so busy drinking. And he dropped me off at our home. He went and stayed somewhere else. And I went in, and I opened the cupboard. It was about midnight, and I had probably 30 bottles of wine and, a half a dozen bottles of hard alcohol. And I stood there for a couple hours, and I poured them all down the sink, every single one. I just stood there and poured till about 2 a.m. And, you can call AA still. And I called, and they put you through to a member of your own gender, or at least back then they did. This woman gets on a line, and she talks to me for about an hour, and I'm busy pouring while she's talking. And I said, no, I'll come in the morning. She told me where it was. I said, I'll be there. Is it going to be a Saturday? And she said, no, I'll pick you up. I said, no, 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 I've made up my mind. Well, they've heard that a million times. She thought 50-50 that this gal shows. In the morning, though, I drove down there. I was a nervous wreck. They had butcher paper on the windows so that you had privacy inside. With some little building, right? And I stood outside and I was dressed to the nines. I remember I had my most expensive cowboy boots on. I was going to make a good impression. And I opened the door and I looked in the room, and I saw 6 lawyers sitting in there in this crowd. And I thought, oh, who knew? Half the town, half the bar, the bar association was sitting in this room. Just, I started to laugh. I thought, this can be cool. So I went in and I sat in the back row, still real edgy, thinking, I wonder if this applies to me. I wonder if this applies to me, And so I'm listening, and I'm really intrigued because these perfectly normal people are who I thought were fine were telling their story of addiction, and how they got to sobriety, and all the holes they've fallen in along the way. And finally, somebody looks back at me and says, "Hey, do you want to share?" And I remember I stood up and I said, you know what? I'm an alcoholic. It was just enough, just listening to, 3, 4, 5 people. I thought, yep, this is me. This is me. And I have never been happier. I was on such a pink cloud there. I sailed around in those rooms, as I said, for 3 years. Just loved it. I'd never made such great friends, felt such sense of belonging, felt I'd really, found myself. It was such a spiritual connection too. I rediscovered my whole spiritual life there. I did. I dumped it, probably with that first drink at 15 or 16. I remember kissing all that stuff off and thinking, these drugs are the solution. So I quit. And it's been, I did the math. I'm on the way home yesterday. I'm doing the math. I can't do little numbers in my head. And I thought, oh my God, I've got 44 years of sobriety. Can you believe that? Isn't that outrageous? Isn't Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Isn't that something? Isn't it? Yeah. And um, I came home and told Eric, and we got back together right away. And he's got this. He quit the same day I did. And what could he do, right? Um, so yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I threw the Valium out the same moment. This came home from the meeting and threw the Valium. I remember pouring it down the toilet. It's kind of fun, You're like, out of here, get out of my space. These horrible drugs and what they've done to me, because it was bad. It was bad. I had women, are far more susceptible because of our lower body weight and our hormones. We are much more susceptible to addiction, much more, gals. Guys will last much longer addicted, 10 years more than a woman will. A woman will, her body cannot sustain it. And my God, I've seen such sad stories, sad tales. Um, the woman that I talked to that night, remember, I said she answered the phone. They put her through on the line at midnight. She had a slip about a year after I joined the program, and she died. Isn't that sad? Isn't that the saddest thing? I pray for her all the time because she got me in, you know? And what a sad story, She just couldn't make it. It was so sad. But women's chances, you should know this if you're a practitioner, or a family friend or whatever. Women's chances are not even 1 in 5 of succeeding, because the hook is so much deeper. The hook of addiction into the female body and psyche, so much more profound. So this is, the two best things I figure I ever did for myself in my life was quit drinking and starting to meditate. And I did them in the same, about 3 or 4 month period. And my whole life just went in a 180, turned everything around, everything. All right, that's my story. Let's hear from some other people. Huh? Who here? Linda Richards. This fits you. You're an old addict, right?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
so.
yeah. Yeah, it took me a couple of years to after I was in the program to actually get, a few months. And I ended up on a psych ward, um, a suicide attempt, and went
Oh,
then
Christ.
and then I went to a treatment center, and uh I was there about 8 weeks altogether. And then I was on the psych ward, luckily for 6. But I was still, when I went to the treatment center, I was still hallucinating the first couple of weeks that I was there. So it was, yeah, it was a rough road. And yes, AA was that was what that changed my life, but it was, I wasn't able to do it with just AA. I struggled with depression and all those skeletons in the closet. I think were the things that kept me drinking. And like you said, you have a drink, you can get through the day. And I too was a valiant person, but I drank until I passed out, and then like I was a closet drinker. I did most of it at home. Um, and then I would get up in the morning and I'd take Valium to get rid of the shakes and be able to go to work. Um, what changed was uh, luckily coming to faith was luckily, and it was, if you take this desire to drink away from me, I'll believe in a God, because I did not believe in God. In the AA program, they would tell me, do good orderly direction. So try to go that way. And I think doing the fifth step was likely the second thing that helped me, um, because I had to write down the things that made me drink, the skeletons that were in the closet, and I shared it with a priest in while I was in treatment. Um, I have 36 years sober,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah,
Give her a
and I,
hand. God, that's a lot of years, Linda.
yeah, but
You know that they just slip by, don't they? And you don't realize that,
I was 40, so I'm not, like I
yeah.
spent 40 years doing it, so it was hard. And this life, getting up and knowing what you did the day before is or the night before is good. You get up in the morning and you go out and check the car to make sure that there's no dents in it and whatnot, because I would black out if I went out.
Uh-huh.
I think one of the things, I think the biggest thing for me was when I woke up in the hospital after my last attempt, my counselor said to me, Linda, do you want to feel the love you have for your daughter? And I think that was
Oh,
what pulled
what
me,
a great comment. Hmm.
yeah, because I didn't feel anything. And that was so scary. She went through a window and she cut her leg, and she had this big gash on her leg. And I was holding her and I didn't feel a thing. And it terrified me.
Yeah, it
It
numbed
really
you.
did. Yeah,
Mm.
it really terrified me. But I think we really do need to. This program, I think, is the other thing. Being able to stay in your body. Because I still struggled. Even when I came into this program, I still didn't feel love, and I still was not able to be present. I was always looking for
Hmm.
that something that would help me get through the day, and so terrified that I was going to have that drink,
Uh-huh.
you know. And I was still suicidal in 2010 when I came into the program, 29, 28, 29,
And look at you now,
2008.
one of our major, teachers here. And you've got such a great career that you've, developed in helping others. Really.
Yeah, I see so much of it. Uh,
Don't you? Yeah.
yeah,
At
there's,
work.
and especially, yeah, women, and it's
Tell the audience what it is you do, Linda.
okay. I work in a women's shelter, so I see a lot of abuse and a lot of addiction and
Hmm.
trafficking, and one of the things that is so sad is a lot of time, the male figure or the female figure can happen both ways. We have had both, and what happens is that they control their partner or their person with drugs, and now it's
With the
drugs.
substance.
It's
Right.
mostly drugs now. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and it's so easy to put something in a drink and then, or smoke or whatever, and they lose control, and then after a while, the person doesn't want them anymore because
Uh-huh.
they don't do what they want them to do anymore. They're just kind of a vegetable, and they want it all the time, right? So then they go
Yeah.
find somebody else, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Not addicts have no clue with the um, intensity of the need for the substance.
yeah.
No, people who haven't been through this, they have no idea. It's I have a nephew who's my brother's son, who went to rehab 7 times trying to kick oxycodone,
Yeah.
and finally has. He's got 5 years of sobriety, but he had to kick oxycodone and pot and alcohol all at once, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, one just leads to the other.
Yeah, and they don't
As you
understand.
know,
Yeah, and they don't
yeah,
understand that, yeah, they
right,
they
right.
think that if they, quit all the drugs except for pot, they're okay.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that for a minute because I've actually done quite a bit of study on that lately. I've read all of the medical pieces. I have always known now for, I don't know, 44 years that pot, it is a gateway drug. And I could tell by working with, first with people at AA and then with probably thousands of clients since then, okay, that um, it in itself is really quite dangerous. I have seen some real problems with it with my um, people who've come to me for help. I've seen where it's really screwed them up psychically,
Mhm, mhm.
major. And I thought, why hasn't Western medicine figured this out yet? And of course, I'm becoming less and less popular with my opinion as the years go on in California, where they're pushing for legality. And so they finally got it legal, I don't know how many years ago. And I'm like, wrong, 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 because I know
Mhm.
it's really risky. Well, now Western medicine did a 180 and agrees with me and has decided, I don't know if you're up on the literature or not, but now medicine is saying that it's actually very risky, that you're much more likely if you have a weakness for something like schizophrenia,
Mhm.
it can really open the door to it. Well, who wants that?
Yeah.
Imagine how awful that is. Yeah. So this is something you all need to know, you guys, especially if no offense, if you think a couple hits of pot on Friday night, aren't going to do any harm. I do think it's very risky. I really do. Have you seen that at work, Linda, with your
Yes.
clientele? Yeah.
Yes, because it's legal, so we can't stop them from doing that.
Right.
They're,
Right. Oh, in Canada,
we
it's
can
legal
stop them from bringing in, they can't have alcohol or anything in the house, but they're allowed to have pot. So
in your shelter.
they are allowed
No
to. Yeah.
kidding. Oh, I
Yeah.
had no
Yep.
idea.
It has to be locked
Huh.
up. They have to pass it in, but yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Huh.
So they can't smoke it on the grounds. They can't smoke it in the house or anything like that. But we can't take it away from them because it's legal. So
Oh, listen,
it's
Carl Black said, thank you for speaking truth about marijuana. California sober, it's in its own epidemic. And Francis is saying, thank you for this information. I had no idea. Yeah, no, I've been reading every article now for, a couple, 3 years on this. I noticed it about 3 years ago that all of a sudden, all the medical people, because I read all the medical stuff, they're all saying, hey, wait a second, this is actually a very dangerous drug. And
mm-hmm,
like they didn't know, like the rest of us were aware. I
mm-hmm,
got to share with you my first experience, my only one and only experience with pot. I still remember. So I was in college. Sure sounded like fun to me. I had just a couple hits. I was in a living room with a setting on a Friday night, probably with 3 or 4 people, and I shrunk down to the size of my thumb, I was sitting in a regular armchair, but all of a sudden I was the size of my thumb on this armchair. I was totally frightened. I looked down and I thought, I'm now like 1,000 feet off the floor. I'm only this big. I have been shrunk. It took 4 or 5 hours for this darn thing to wear off. And finally, I became me again, the regular size, and was able to step off the chair, go home. I thought, well, I was probably, I'm probably one of those people that would be very susceptible to something like schizophrenia. Probably,
Mhm,
if it
mhm.
was that much of an hallucinogen for me.
I
So
was
I
so great.
stuck, I stuck to alcohol.
Yep.
I thought that's nice and safe.
Hmm.
I don't
But
hallucinate on it. I can't find
yeah,
my car the next morning. I used to go out. I used to go out and look at my car wouldn't be in the driveway. The trouble was that the town I lived in, they were very what's that word when they're cooperative with you? They're co helping you with your addiction. What's the word?
codependent.
Yeah,
Codependent.
helping you out. And so I would call the police station. I go, it's Deborah. Can you tell me where my car is? And some nice officer would pick me up, take me down to my car, and he'd laugh. I'm so glad, that somehow you got home last night without driving. Here's your car. Yeah, weren't those the days? God. And I was always leaving my shoes. I'd have to go back. We lived in a town where they had, a big, important, huge casinos. And I would walk through the casino and, leave my shoes there and go upstairs and go dancing or something. And I have to go back there and pick up my shoes. Well, great to have you share, Linda. Let's open the panel. Let's get some other people. Thank you. Who else wants to talk about come share your history? We're having our own little AA meeting today. Come on, you guys. I know there's some recovering addicts here,
I
I'm
can
sure.
do it.
Who's that?
This Cynthia.
Oh, Cynthia, come talk.
Okay.
Hi. Cynthia,
Hi. Yeah.
another
Well,
Canadian. So the Canadians have the lock on this, huh? I want to assure you you don't.
well, I'm glad I'm a recovered survivor of living with addiction, behavior problems in a family affected by addictions.
Uh-huh.
Um, I guess I could have been a full fledged addict myself, but I just didn't take to it because for some reason I already had enough issues of feeling
No, you know what
unsafe.
it is? You know what it is, Cynthia? I don't see the addiction gene in you. When I look at people, I can always see it.
Yeah.
It's like a little dot on their forehead that I can spot. You don't have it. Lucky
Yeah.
you.
I was repulsed by it, even though I did
Uh-huh.
experiment,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't, maybe I did try weed once, but there was something about it. I thought that's not right. It wasn't safe for me because I didn't want to
Uh-huh.
be out of control. I didn't want to be vulnerable to someone doing something to me while I was incapacitated by alcohol or drugs. So I always felt
Well,
that
you're no
was an
fun.
issue. No. Maybe I could have had fun doing something to other people who are drunk.
So you have family members that you were dealing
Yes,
with.
and I
Yeah.
and I have
That's
lots of
probably
them right
speaking to
now.
half the room. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I stumbled into 12 step by accident, but I don't know if it's an accident. I think it was divine intervention because I did use prayer when I was struggling with family chaos, and my younger brother was in an addiction cycle, and he was
Can I
suicidal.
just interrupt for a second? I want to share this note I see from Brenda to everyone. Whoops. Whoops. Let me go grab it. Just want to be sure I catch that. That's an interesting remark, Brenda. Um, what'd she say here? My mother used alcohol and then Xanax and passed at a young age of 53
Whoa.
of cirrhosis of the liver.
Uh,
Ooh, wow, not good. Wow, that's a cautionary tale, Brenda. Thank you. And um, that's interesting. Somebody said Dr. Phil had a show. Who was this? Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Dr. Phil had a show where he talked about how the pot today you buy on the street makes people paranoid. I bet.
oh.
I bet. So go ahead, Cynthia.
Well, speaking of paranoia, um, my well, I've had my own dealings with fear and insecurity for a very long time and not feeling grounded. And I didn't have personal boundaries and felt really enmeshed in all the family problems because I was my mother's shoulder to cry on. And so there was this chaos in my life constantly. And I didn't know how to deal with it, but I did try to control things and tell people what to do. But that didn't work out very well. I ended up in 12-step program because a young woman
What,
that I,
Al-Anon? Al-Anon or
yes,
something else?
yeah, I
Al-Anon.
got to Al-Anon.
Tell people what Al-Anon is in case they don't know.
Okay. Al-Anon is for family and friends of alcoholics. So anybody that has somebody in their life, whether it's a coworker, a friend, a family member, and you feel affected by their drinking, which means you're obsessively thinking about whether or not you're going to have, some time with them and enjoy the time, or you're going to face that person going down with, having drank too much, and you're constantly obsessed with kind of recovering or staying connected in the relationship, but you're reaching for stuff and it's really inconsistent. It's like you're going up and down
Yeah.
on a roller coaster, or you're
Yeah.
on a merry-go-round, and you're just so unsettled and all of that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Thanks, Cynthia. We've got a lot of hands in the air. Want to
yeah.
hear
Could
from?
I
Yeah,
just tell
it's
you one
great.
more thing relating to
Yeah, of
paranoia?
course.
My brother, who was addicted to alcohol and drugs, street drugs, and he was only like 14 or 15 and he was experimenting. He ended up with schizophrenia, and he is a diagnosed
Oh,
schizophrenic.
God,
And he's
Cynthia, I'm
been
so
that way.
sorry.
He's been that way for 30 years.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that.
So
It's an
yeah,
ugly, ugly disorder.
it
It's
is.
the drugs they have for it are almost as bad as the disease.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're pretty disordering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm real
So then
sorry. Well, thank
there's
you for
issues
sharing.
around
Yeah,
that too, right?
yeah,
The family having to deal with
yeah,
schizophrenia in the
yeah,
family as well. So
yeah. Which reminds me, you all have probably heard me talk about my beloved and only sibling brother.
oh,
Just to talk about that for a second. He and I started drinking the same year as kids. And when I quit, he thought that, what a joke. I don't know how you want to give that up. It's so much fun. And then about 10 years ago, he mentioned to me that he was starting to have problems with his memory. I should mention that he's a billionaire who completely self-made, completely 100% self-made, did it all by himself. Right out of high school, started a scrap business and turned it into an international equipment business, and it's just amazing. He also has a wife and 4 kids and 8 grandchildren. And um, 10 years ago, he said to me, I'm starting to have problems with my memory and they think it's the booze. And I said, gee, Bert, please quit. I know it's not too late. I talked to his doctors. I found him a really good rehab through one of my level 4s, by the way. I'm doing a private session with a level 4, and he's already been to 3 rehabs. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And she said that she had just come out of this rehab on the East Coast for high-end corporate people. And I thought, oh, that'd be perfect for Bert. And so I called him right away, and I flew him out there and got him in. And he stayed 60 days and came home. But they called me and they said, I said, gee, I'm talking to him every day on the phone. We're talking business. He sounds great. And the treatment center said, but don't leave him alone in the kitchen. He might leave the stove on. I said, you mean? Oh, they said, no, there's some cognitive damage here. So that was 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And this summer, I was called to his bedside in late August and found him on the edge of death from blood clots. He has been non-communicative now for a year, can't talk. He's lost everything in terms of his consciousness. Can you imagine anything so grim? He's literally trapped inside his body. So he's got this hugely strong body, but he forgot about from here up. And so this is all screwed. And so he may or may not know who you are. On occasion, I know he recognizes me, but he can't talk. He's flat on his back. He's in a care facility, a memory facility. It's just the saddest thing imaginable. He could not stop. It was alcohol. He could not stop. So the last thing he said to me that I remember was, I wish I'd stopped when you did. Isn't that sad? Isn't that just
yes.
devastating?
Really sorry to
So,
hear that,
Sherry,
Deborah.
yeah, thank you. Sherry, you got your hand in the air, and a couple other people want to hear your stories.
Thanks, Deborah. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and sharing.
Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Very sorry for you, brother. That's
Thank you.
devastating.
Hmm.
I lost a brother to addiction as well.
Hmm. It's just
Um,
heartbreaking.
yeah, I liked somebody mentioning the family disease. It's such a family component for me personally. On my dad's
Huh.
side of the family, we were all addicted. They were all addicted. I was so scared of alcohol. I knew when the alcohol broke out as a youngster in the house, there was going to be problems. And I was so baffled when I picked up alcohol, you know, as a 15-year-old, I was really baffled that I started to drink. And then you mentioned, Deborah, what it feels like to put alcohol in the
Hmm.
system.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah. And I wasn't really sure I was addicted because in my mind I controlled it, but I did a lot of blackout drinking.
That's not a
And
good sign.
no,
That's one of the five. They give you five. I
yep,
scored 100% on each of the five signs.
yep. I was one of those blackout drinkers, and I
Uh-huh.
thank God for that because I maybe would have never come around. But for me personally, I was all about relationships too. I had to have a guy, and I was a bar fly, and I needed to go to the bar, and that's where I hung
Uh-huh.
out.
Of
And
course. Of course.
and I was 25 years old when I sobered up, and I was 8 months pregnant.
Oh my God. Good for
Yes.
you, Sherry.
And I remember the
Huh.
last day, I remember my last, it wasn't my last drink, but it was my last drunk. And I remember that day like yesterday. And they say if you don't remember your last drunk, you haven't had it. So I do
Oh,
remember
interesting.
mine.
Uh-huh.
But I was at the bar and I was noticing, and I went by myself and I was noticing how good looking that lead singer was. And I ended up at the a house party with this good looking lead singer. And I was drinking, and somebody passed me a joint because I was duly addicted to marijuana as well. Um, and when I took a toke of that joint, and that lead singer came up to me and said, "You are disgusting.
Oh,
You make me
wow.
sick."
Oh God. Not exactly
Wow.
what you wanted to hear.
Well, you
Ah.
know what, Deborah? He was telling me what I was saying to myself, and I remember that like
Uh-huh.
it was yesterday. And I thought, yeah, I'm too scared to drink and too scared not to drink. But yeah, I sobered up. Funny enough, I think it was God's grace, and that guy was put there on my path. I had a lot of guilt, had a lot of shame, and I mean, getting sober, I think is easy. It's staying sober that's difficult.
No, boy. Hmm.
You know, getting
Yeah, well, thank
sober.
you, Sherry. What a great story. It's really helpful to people. And over here, I see Charlotte is saying, thank you for sharing. My biological father was addicted to alcohol, but I was not aware that he couldn't stop. I asked him to stop a few times and he didn't. Maybe he couldn't. And for years, I hated him for that. He's passed away now. And by listening to you, I realized he couldn't stop without help.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel bad about that, Charlotte. You understand it's not,
Mhm.
we can't make anyone
Yeah,
stop,
that's
right?
right.
Only the person can elect to stop. I couldn't help, I mean, I did everything I could to help my brother, but only the person can stop. I was just visiting him. I just saw him a week ago. Again, he was completely, non-communicative, like a vegetable. Right? It's pretty bad. It's grim. And my sister-in-law, his wife, said to me, thanks to this experience, 3 out of our 4 kids have quit drinking. 100%, 3 out of them. Well, I mentioned the nephew, right, that was had multiple addictions to pot and alcohol and oxycodone and who knows what else, right? I knew about that, and I have his oldest brother. I know quit now. It's been 2 years, but one of the sisters has now quit. So 3 out of 4 of the kids. It's very promising, right? But it really runs in families. You should know your family tree. Um, I went to get some help one time. I know drinking and recovery precedes rehab, right? Rehab is a newer phenomena. But I remember I went to, I don't know, some psychologist or something back then to, for more support. And he said, come back and bring me a tree, your family tree. Well, it was ripe. It was really something. So I called my mother and I said, tell me the family tree. So her, my grandfather, my mother's father, I knew was an alcoholic because he lived with us and died of alcoholism. And then on my dad's side, his father was an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic who quit the year I was 4 years old. Um, uh, my mother's two brothers were both alcoholic. Two of my father's brothers were alcoholics. So, the doctor looked at it and he goes, basically, you're screwed. There's just too much of it here. Whatever you do, don't go back to it. Can I hear from somebody else? Is there another hand in the air? Let me change my view here. The gallery. Jamie, hi, let's hear from you. See your hand in the air.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to share my experience as well. I was raised in a household of addiction, so it really hit me at a very early age. In elementary school, I remember seeing things laying around my house. So it wasn't like drugs were a really bad thing for me because I was so exposed to them. And it did rip apart my family and all that. I lived with my grandmother for many years. But in middle school, I think I had my first drink of alcohol. It was easily accessible because my grandparents owned grocery stores, and so it was really easy for me to access that.
You could snitch a bottle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
And typically did when I would have, when I would stay with friends, sometimes it was so easy for
What
me
fun. Right.
yeah, right.
I bet you were popular.
Yeah. 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 And then, in high schools when things really got bad for me and I started experimenting with Xanax, the marijuana, shortly after high school, I got into oxycodone when a lot of other people did, and that ended up me having a spiraling addiction for over a decade.
Oh God, Jamie, I'm so sorry. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is hard. And I did get on Suboxone, which allowed me to live a pretty normal life, and but I did have hope that I would eventually get free of everything, and I did. But I really contribute that to my spirituality and me starting to meditate to want to gain control over my life because I had tried rehab, and I wasn't successful at it, and so meditation is what began my journey into really trying to pull away from it all. And after about 2 years, I think it was 2 years, I was in a pretty good place and started to even have some of my initiation.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I quit after I had a sort of like a seizure episode in my hammock when I was meditating, which I do feel was sort of spirit induced because I was having visions. But it really blew me wide open. That episode did. And I think I lucid traveled for about 2 years. But in that time period of psychosis and going through it all, because I quit my job after that happened, I couldn't function really as a human for about 3 months. And really, you would think that would be the most difficult time for me to try to pull away from it. But I was such in a psychotic state that I was able to actually quit everything.
How long ago was that?
That was 2022, I think.
Oh, recently. And how do you feel now?
I don't struggle with it like I thought that I would. And really, I think the biggest thing that I'm still working through is some of the trauma from it, from the experiences.
I bet.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Just a question. Have you ever used a hallucinogen like
Oh,
LSD?
I have. I started using that in the beginning of my spiritual journey, trying to,
Find
expand
answers.
myself, like a lot of
I'll tell you what
people
just
did.
to share
Yeah,
with you, when you first started talking, that's what I picked up, was
yeah,
that experience you had in the hammock was related to an early hallucinogenic episode, that it
yeah.
kind of came back in. And
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't experiment with it very much because I respected it
yeah.
and still do. But it was a part of my awakening journey, and
And you
so yeah,
survived.
and I survived. Yeah,
That's the good
yeah, yeah,
news. Well,
yeah,
aren't you
yeah,
brave to share? Thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Yeah,
too.
and I'm
Yeah,
so proud of you because look what you've accomplished. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that's quite a story. Good for you.
yeah, yeah. Thank
Somebody
you.
else had their hand in the air. I thought I saw one more hand. Was it Jamie? No. Let's talk to you.
It's David.
I don't know how to
David.
raise my hand, but I can share something.
Yeah, go ahead, David. Great.
Guys, I met with Deborah last summer. Remember Deborah? I
I
came up
do.
and saw you in Santa Barbara.
Definitely. I just talked to you about 2 weeks ago.
I've had quite a journey,
You
and I've
have. That
had
was quite a tale you told me.
I have lots of tales. I could talk for hours. I'm not going to do that
Uh,
now,
well,
but
you
I
only
will
have a
share
couple
this.
minutes.
I will share this. When I was a young man and grew up Presbyterian in North Carolina in church, they had the catechism, and that says you're an evil, wicked person, and Jesus died, so now you're okay. No heaven and hell stuff. And then in sixth grade, we moved down to Georgia, and I went to Baptist thing, and the guy says, if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're going to hell. I'm like, well, I don't want to go to hell, so I ran up front. So I got Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And then I was introduced to pot. I started smoking pot 13 years old with friends, and I just know. And I enjoyed pot. I was a smart guy. I just playing, having fun, and smoked a lot of pot and had trouble with my family, finding out about it. And it slowly came out. And long and short and skinny of it, let me jump to the chase. I ended up being married to a woman in a church where I was supposed to be straight, but I was gay. And when I came out of that church, the first my first real bout with addiction was after my daughter died. She was 6.5 years old, and I'd met a guy in California, Asian guy. I'm attracted to Asian guys. In Georgia, there weren't any Asian people, so I didn't know I was ever attracted to guys really. But I knew homosexuality was bad. You don't hide it. So I did that. And so when I was in the church, I kept trying to say, they had this dating revelation. Dating is of the devil. If you date, you'll raise
Did we lose David? He must have lost his connection. I had another David, two Davids today. Where's my other David?
Hey, Deborah.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, but how are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's hear from you. That'd
Thanks.
be great. Thank you. Isn't that funny? A David
Yeah,
followed by
very
a David.
interesting story, David and David. There's more than
Yeah.
one. So, no, it's great. No, I'm my own little bit of disclosure. As a teenager and a college student, I did plenty of experimentation. And then, and I could see alcoholism. And then I think my older brother brought up the concept of adult children of alcoholics. And so that was kind of an odd interrupt into the family dynamic, even though it's a thing. And so, having a parent, that's otherwise a functional alcoholic, it's like, okay, well, again, Deborah, as you said, it's kind of it's in the family tree, right? And it's a lot of times genetic, and it's a predisposition to addictive behavior and so on. And so, I think that, a decade or two later, I decided to show up at Al-Anon, and that was an extraordinary learning opportunity. I mean, I think I went to 6 or 7 different events, and my learning curve was very steep. And it's like, even just to take it in, like, oh, okay, you're not just imagining things, you're not making it up. It's addiction and alcoholism can be a component in a family dynamic, and as children, we may be born into this dynamic, and by default, we're not going to see it for ourselves. We're going to, what's going on? And then you start to see that, family members even have a role around the addict. And as you said earlier, Deborah, it's none of us can do anything about it. It's not up to us to do anything about it. The addict has to want to change. At what point do they see rock bottom and go, okay, it can only be up from here, and they're willing to do the work to get on the other side of it, and to either the chemical,
Yeah.
it controls you control the chemical, and it's kind of it's an odd delusion of sorts to think that, hey, I'm in charge here, but actually it's in charge of you. So it's
it's such a shock to you when you find out that it's really ruling your life, and these interventions that are so much more popular these days. I guess that's what my husband did, was kind of an intervention, right? Driving along. But the whole family comes over and sits down and corners you. I don't know about that. I don't know.
No distinction. Even for you as a family member, it's like, what distinctions can I understand about my own life and my, the dynamic of that in, in our social and familial context. Right. It's around. It's a thing.
Yeah, and so you went to what's the group you're talking about? Adult Children of Alcoholics?
Yeah, I mentioned Adult Children of Alcoholics. Like there's I haven't spent a lot of time studying it, but it's out there, and it can be a great source.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just okay. Yeah. And then that's a thing. You're not just making it up. Like,
right.
It's a dynamic. It's real. There are factors, and you can start to learn from that sense.
Yeah, because in my family, my dad quit drinking so early in my life. I was only 4. The family lore, the story is that he was a senator at the time, was in California, and apparently my mother sent word down to the Capitol that he couldn't come home. She said, "You're still drinking, you can't come home." And he had 2 little kids, and so he went to his brother's house and decided he was going to go stone cold sober. And he was a remarkable man. He actually just quit. Boom, done. I saw him quit smoking the same way. It was pretty impressive. He probably had he was so much older than me. He was in his mid 40s when I was born. So I started smoking the same year he quit. I remember sitting at the kitchen table while he told me what the Surgeon General had just written in the New York Times or the Reader's Digest or whatever he was reading. He said, "I'm going to quit now." And he took the pack of cigarettes out of his, the men wore them here in their best pocket, and he crumbled them up and threw them away. And that was that. He had incredible willpower. Yeah.
Some people can have it resolved, but then obviously others don't. So,
but that's a 1 in a million guy or gal. Yeah. I needed a group. I really needed support. And as you guys know, I'm a big believer in the power of the group. Thank you, David. Really nice of you to share. I believe entirely in the power of the group. I hope you can all come to my event that's going to be in Scottsdale in the middle of May. Don't know if anybody's here today that could pop that link in the chat to my May retreat, but that's where I do my best work, is in a group. It is because I'm not just using my connection to spirit, I'm using your connection to spirit. So I have a way of spinning it. So let's just do it all together right now. Let's all just close our eyes and intend to connect to spirit. Spirit is here. Spirit is here working through us right now, just like it works through every AA meeting, by the way. the Spirit's very strong in any group where people are together and intending the same thing. They're intending for the best of themselves, their individual selves, as well as for the group. That's what we're intending right now, is we're intending for the best, not just for ourselves, but for each one of you. And so we send our intentionality out to heal each one of us in whatever way we need, whatever our needs are at this moment. That is our intention. And we're expanding our heart chakras in a way that encompasses everyone in this room. Wherever you are on the planet, we're all connected. We're all connected. It's so beautiful, that love, that it's really unconditional love. And so it is. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I think this was really powerful. I hope you all got as much out of it as I did. Hey, you guys, listen, I'm going to do a whole hour and a half, actually, hour on a real esoteric topic that you'll all enjoy. I'll be talking about Beyond the Horror Line. I think you'll really enjoy it. Check it out. You go to maybe somebody can drop the link for me to it in the chat window. I'll leave the chat open here for quite a while. And sorry to have to run, but it's been great being with you all. And David, will bring you on next time for sure. Okay. Sorry that we lost or you lost connection. All right, everybody, take care. Thank you for coming.